And when they did the study, managers had a bigger impact on someone's emotional mental health. The only person that was the same or even got close was someone's spouse or partner. So I'm talking their kids, their family, their coach, their mentor, their doctor, their psychologist, any of it
Yeah.
doesn't even get close to the
Yeah.
impact that your manager has.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads that I'll be having these conversations with on the books that have really contributed the most to their life, whether they're the author or not, made the most impact on their work, their life, and their business. All those worlds intersect. And my guest today is Ryan McCrea, and Ryan is a senior talent and leadership development executive known for building practical, high-impact strategies that help organizations grow stronger leaders, better teams, and healthier cultures. With more than 2 decades of experience across talent management, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, mentoring, and culture transformation, Ryan brings a science practitioner approach to helping people and businesses perform at their best. He is also the author of Quick Bites of Insight, a book that offers practical, real-world leadership lessons for managers and professionals looking to grow in the flow of work. Most recently, Ryan served as head of learning and leadership development at Amarin, where he led enterprise-wide learning and leadership development strategy and oversaw a team responsible for building scalable solutions that supported leaders and employees across the organization. He currently serves as president of the St. Louis Organization Development Network, reflecting his continued commitment to advancing the field of organizational development and leadership practice. Based in St. Louis, Ryan lives with his wife, Susan, and their 2 cats, Zoe and Coco. Outside of work, he is passionate about work, movies, fashion, pop culture, and art, and is always up for a lively conversation about any of them. And we'll get to that too, Ryan. I'm curious about those pieces. The last piece before we get to Ryan is I met Ryan through Sabina Sulat, who I had on this series in episode 72, and that was way back in October 2023. And we covered her book at the time, Agile Unemployment, Your Guide to Thriving While Out of Work. And Sabina has been great. We've kept in touch. She'll be back on here in a coming weeks, coming months to cover her new book that's out or will be out soon. So I'm looking forward to that. That's always a great conversation. I'm grateful to her for coming on. Ryan, I'm grateful for the introduction that she made between us. So thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here, and I'm glad that Sabina connected us.
So Ryan, great bio. Who are you today? What does the work look like that you do in the day-to-day? Because obviously there's so many pieces, and now you have the book. I'm assuming there's other writings, whether blogs or anything of that nature. So right now, I know you're in the thick of PR for your book, but aside from that, what is your work looking like these days in the day-to-day?
Yeah, it's kind of I'm at an interesting crossroads right now. So I was most recently, I think you had mentioned, at a big energy company here in St. Louis. So I'm on the hunt, like a lot of people are for them right now, trying to find that next role. So I've got that going on. I've got the book going on. I've started doing keynotes for the book. So I'm actually keynoting in quite a few places here and there, especially a lot of professional organizations here in St. Louis and beyond, and starting to do that for organizations as well. I just did that with a leadership program the other day. And then I started a consulting firm on the side just to do some freelance work while I'm still looking for that full-time role. So it's called Lucci Leadership Consulting. Lucci is Sicilian for light because I'm Sicilian. So I wanted to really think about light and kind of how do I help illuminate kind of the path for organizations when it comes to learning, leadership development, and everything around that too. So I've got a lot going on with that, but I would say that's kind of everything I've got going on besides you mentioned the president of STLODM. So I'm in my 1.5 years of kind of running that organization and turning it around. When I
Awesome.
first took over that organization, it was, it was surviving is what I tell people. So my mantra was really, how do we get from survive to thrive? And so it's been helping turn that organization around. Was a big part of my last 1.5 years too.
Incredible. Ryan, you mentioned obviously naming your organization after your Sicilian roots.
Mhm.
How else? I'm curious, and you mentioning it, right? Not a standard question of mine, but how do your roots, your Sicilian roots, how does that play into your work? How do you see that come through?
Oh, that is a great question. I think, my Sicilian roots, of course, are family. And when I really think about family, growing up in a pretty large Sicilian Italian family, I think connection and really caring for each other and caring for people was just a part of, what I grew up in. And I think that actually it just kind of bled into really what my work life is. So I think in a lot of ways that care for other people, and that looked different in different times in my life. I think when you asked me from like 6 to 18, I was going to be a chiropractor. And chiropractic was really one of the only things that helped me when I was younger. I had open heart surgery when I was younger, but I also had asthma when I was younger. And having that chiropractic care when I had asthma, believe it or not, was one of the things that helped me the most. And so if you ask me again, 6 to 18, I was going to be a chiropractor. I went to school, started doing bio, started doing chem, kind of lost the love for it that I had when I was younger, and then moved over to psychology. And while I was doing psychology, I ended up finding IO psychology. And that was like, that for me was like ding, 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 ding. It was like, okay, I can actually help businesses in a very,
Yeah.
very different way than kind of others think about. So, I mean, I tell people, I'm an IO psychologist. I tell them I'm a business psychologist. I know a lot about people. I know a lot about their behavior. And I take that and put it into organizations to help individuals, teams, leaders, sometimes processes and systems just be better in organizations so that they can be more effective. So I think all of that came from this whole idea of family and taking care
Yeah.
of people and connection. And I think just how did that lead to what was the most important thing for me? And for me, this really led to this idea of like learning and leadership development and talent development and OD, which is really a lot of what we learn in that master's program. And so that was the way that it kind of manifested itself in my life.
Yeah. It's incredible where you don't really, I mean, I don't know about you, but when you're that age and you're studying and you're trying to figure out who you want to be, you maybe have some kind of fire in you, some kind of focus in you, some kind of curiosity. But it's amazing when you look back and you say, okay, part of the drive for this particular field, aside from if it's in a family business, part of that drive comes from my family. Part of that drive comes from my culture, cultural identity, all that. So as soon as you mentioned Sicilian and how you were tying it, you were making it about light and naming your organization, I was curious how much deeper you've thought about that. For the next question, you've already started talking about that. So can you continue down that path of uh, how you got to here? You talked about chiropractic practices, going to school, bio, chem, all of that, losing the love for that initial drive for chiropractic work. And then you mentioned your organizations, your love for that. What did that look like when you switched from the chiropractic path to organizational to leadership? You mentioned it. You mentioned there was a transition, but
Mhm.
do you remember what the thinking was going from one field to the other?
Yeah, it actually wasn't as drastic in my mind as it might have been on paper. So the reality is I think even as a young kid, I was one of those weird kids that actually really loved leadership. Like good and bad. I liked really getting a chance to like just see people lead. Whether it was my dad leading martial arts class or watching our pastor at our church or anything of the sort. Anytime there was learning and leadership kind of going on, I was kind of paying attention to it, whether I knew it or not. And then I started jumping into those roles quite a bit. So a lot in junior high and high school, if there was a leadership role and there was an opportunity to be in it, I jumped at that opportunity. So I found in my friend group, I was often the informal leader. I don't know that I ever made myself and said, I'm the leader of our group. But when there were challenges, when there were questions, when people weren't getting along, when we needed something, we needed help, we needed structure or focus, I was that person. Like people would come to me for that. And that kind of was always who I was within a lot of my friend groups and the people that I knew, and even in some ways in my family as well. So I think that was something like, oh, I really like leadership. I like what it is. I think it was a natural inclination that I kind of had in who I was. And that kind of continued from there. So even when I did go to college, that wasn't the only thing I was doing from a leader and learning and leadership development perspective was just, going to my program. I actually was an RA for 3 years at college. I was a peer counselor with our counseling services in on campus. So
Oh,
that
wow.
meant like the peer counseling, if somebody called the counseling office, they could forward them to me. So I did like 60 hours of peer counseling training at some point during that. I also ran the on-campus movie station, and I was the president of Sci-Chi my last year and a half that I was there too. So, I mean, being a leader was something that just always was part of who I was. It definitely ratcheted up when I went to college. Like that was for sure. So when, with a lot of that happening, me already starting to be an RA, I think it was my sophomore year when I moved from being a bio major to a psych major. Like it just had already made sense to me. Like there were some things that were going on. I don't know that I knew exactly what I was going to do with the psychology degree yet.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted me to be a clinical psychologist, and others wanted me to go get my PhD and come back and teach at the university. A lot of professors, that neither of those things were interesting to me. It was when I ran into that IO psychology class and I was like, oh,
Yeah. Same here.
yes, this is
Same
it.
here.
This is what I want to do. That's when it like, bing, and I knew kind of what the rest
Yeah.
of my career was. So I think it was for me, not a massive shift because I'd already cared a lot about learning and leadership development. I was
Yeah.
in a lot of roles, especially at college. Like that was, I was a busy guy on campus when it came to all the things that
Yeah.
I had going on. So it wasn't a big shift for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned just coming across IO psychology or, whatever way you want to title it, because different schools talk about it differently or mention it
Okay.
differently. But for me, it was pretty much the same thing. Like I came from a blue collar family. They wanted me to go to college. They wanted me as far away from any kind of industrial environment, factory,
Yes.
anything like that. So I'm like, all right, business. And then I've always been an introvert. I've always been introspective. I've always kind of like studied and listened to people. So I'm like, all right, business and psychology. The most I could come up with as an undergrad was like, all right, marketing. That makes sense to me. And then when I was looking around for grad programs, I came across industrial psychology, organizational behavior. Again, whatever the title is for whatever school may be presenting a program. But it's funny, like when I heard about it and read it, and when I read particular books about the field, I'm like, this
Yes.
is
Yes.
when I saw your reaction on your face, I felt that
Mhm.
because I've felt that in real time in my own life. So I can appreciate that.
I think there's a lot of us that are out there that like once they found that field, they were like, oh, this is what I want to do with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So then from there, Ryan?
I think from there, I went to grad school and jumped in, really, really enjoyed that. I actually worked in the Career Development Center on campus for 2 years. So
Of
that was
course you
my
did.
grad
Of course you did.
assistantship. Yeah, that was my grad assistantship. Like a lot of other
Yeah.
people, taught classes, did things, taught the stats class. I had a really cool, sweet gig where I spent 20 hours a week in the Career Development Center. So yeah, it fit for me. It made sense based on who I was, based on what I wanted to do, continuing kind of a lot of the other things that I did when it came to being an RA and peer counselor and undergrad. It just made a whole lot of sense for me to do that. And it really helped me graduate on time. So I actually my study was really practical. I didn't have it, my study wasn't with students at the college. Mine was actually about resumes and it was with our clients through the Career Development Center. So I had somebody that helped me set everything up, do all the surveying, help me get all the data. So I actually was one of the, like two people to graduate on time in my master's program, which really, really enjoyed it. Liked my time there. Very science practitioner program, which I think changed me and made me think in that way. Like I do have this mix of, I'm definitely consider myself a scientist in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but I also am very practical. So like I hate, like I've been to PsyOp a couple times and it doesn't really connect with me because it's too science driven and there's not enough practical in it a lot of times.
Yeah. It's great to mention that. I'm glad you brought that up. Just that combination, that balance, if you will,
Mm.
between science and kind of practical every day. Just because, I mean, the science of it kind of makes it sound like it's very cookie cutter, but there's just so much nuance and so much background to each person. So I appreciate you mentioning you can go both ways, the science as well as the everyday, the human side of it, if you will.
Yep.
So then after grad school,
So after grad school, I've worked for about 6 different companies. So I've stayed mainly at this point in my career, everything has been pretty internal. I did the Humane Society of Missouri right after grad school. So I got a chance to work in a nonprofit. It was a pretty small place, 150 when I joined, 250 when I left. I was their HR generalist. So at like 23, I had a lot of hair up here and none here because I don't even think I could grow a beard at that time. And I was the face of HR. My boss was part-time. She was a VP at Purina, had retired there. They kind of roped her in to come in and being the director over at the Humane Society of Missouri. She was 20 hours a week. So I spent some time on the phone with her and a lot with a lawyer when I needed to be. But mainly I was the face like of 150, 200 people on a day-to-day basis, which is pretty amazing. So I got a chance to do everything in HR that you could think of except for payroll at that organization.
yeah.
So loved that. but it was time to move on. Of course, nonprofit, you don't only make so much money. I think I wanted to get married. I was engaged at the time, wanted to get married, have a life, maybe have a house. And so I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to do that if I stay here at a nonprofit. So I landed at Brown Shoe, which is a big shoe company and retailer, but owns a whole bunch of famous footwear stores and wholesale brands. And at the time, I think they even had an online presence that was called shoes.com. And so I started out more in an HR generalist kind of role there. About 6 months in, my boss left
Okay.
and I inherited the performance management process, the succession process, the talent review process, the assessment process for the organization, and then also started doing a lot of analytics for them because they never really had anyone like me there. So I did that both the roles for a couple of years, and then they let me focus more on the OD side as they started building an OD department. I stayed there about 4.5, 5 years, moved on from there, and then went to Monsanto. I was at Monsanto in the HR analytics and metrics department, building dashboards for the HR population and business leaders in the organization for the first couple of years. Then they said, "Hey, we like you." Stuck me in a leadership program, which was weird to be on the other side of a leadership program, but good for me. And then said, "Hey, we want you to go work in biotech because you've got this HR background, an OD background, and an analytics background. We want to see what you can do with a bunch of scientists." So I worked with 4 teams of PhD level scientists, super smart, not always smart about people is what I like to say. And so I literally sat in like 10 hours of leadership team meetings a week because they didn't make a move when it came to people without me. And so a lot of coaching, a lot of spending time with them, a lot of employee relations, a lot of building things that they didn't necessarily have, having them think a little bit differently. I think we even closed 2 sites and had to move all of those to St. Louis at some point. So very, very busy job. 2 days after the Bayer announcement that Bayer and Monsanto were going to be combining, I got a call from Commerce Bank, which is a group that I had interviewed with at the same time, a Midwest bank. So I went over there and I was there, helped them kind of do a couple things. One, really build their talent development department. They had a bunch of trainers and really needed them to be more OD consultants. Help them think through what career development looked like at their organization, and then also help them think about their leadership pipeline and what that looked like as well. Left there at about 5 years, went and did a short stint in tech over at a company called Atlassian, which people don't often
Yeah.
know the company, but they know the products. They know Confluence, they know Jira, you know, they know Trello, they know some of the other products that Atlassian puts out there. So worked for them. Didn't really fit for me, but it was just I figured that out pretty quickly after I got there. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know how much they really care about what I do here. I was the first out the door. There's no managers that are still in the department that I was in at that time. So I think it's just a lot of shift, a lot of change. We know they've had a couple layoffs since then as well. So as a lot of tech companies have. And then most recently it was at a company called Ameren, a big energy company doing a very similar role to what I was doing at Commerce Bank. So running their learning and leadership development for the organization, all the leadership programs kind of rolled up to me. The broader enterprise strategy around really how we thought about learning kind of rolled up to me as well. And then I had a team of people that were helping me make that happen in the organization. So that's generally been my second half of the career has mostly been learning and leadership development for the most part. First half of my career was probably a lot of HR business partner work. And then a lot of OD kind of mixed in between and a lot of always putting in programs and new systems and technology. For some reason that found me at every single place that I worked. I ended up putting some things in at some organization. It just always happened that technology was always part of what I was doing. So it was kind of exciting, with AI coming. I'm hoping to land in an organization that's interested and understands how to do it and maybe work with it well and work with it in the right way and hopefully get some of that in the right place. I think in the right way, because I think people are putting a lot of stock in AI in ways that I'm not sure that it can really take advantage of and that it can really help change learning in the way that people think it can. But I guess we'll see as time goes on.
Can you say more? What are some other thoughts you have? And the weird thing about that is I can ask you today, and maybe I would have
It's going to
asked you the
change.
question a month ago, and the answer would have been different just because everything is changing
Mhm.
so exponentially. But what are your general thoughts on the future of the workforce versus AI? Maybe what do you envision? There's a lot of fear out there, right? Everybody has their
Lots of fear.
ideas. You ask Kevin O'Leary one thing about his data centers and where AI is going, and you ask Elon, then you ask, people in the workforce. What are your thoughts in general? I'm not going to hold you to it, but what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is changing almost every single day. So when we think about it from an L&D lens, I think there's a couple things that I think about. One of the worries I see is a lot of companies are just jumping into AI to jump into AI. Like literally these executives are leaving, going to Silicon Valley, coming back and being like, oh my God, we need to have AI. For
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
What's the thought process? What's the strategy? Is it truly to make your systems and your processes better in your organization? Are you thinking about it from an L&D perspective? Do you want learning to be embedded more into the flow of work? Like, do you want people to understand how to use it? That's another one that I like a little gets in my craw right now is people are just like, give them the tools and they'll go learn it. 80% of people
Yeah.
are not going to know what to do with those tools. Like, the ones that are really intellectually curious and are going to be out there playing with those tools or already have been playing with those tools, the ones that are like literally taking their life and automating it, yeah, they're amazing. They're great, but they didn't need your help to do that. A lot of other people aren't necessarily there from a thought process perspective. So what does that mean for L&D? Well, I think that means a lot of different things. One, we probably need to help organizations really think about this and think about this in a right way. Again, from a scientific perspective, is this really connecting to your strategy? So hopefully, wherever L&D people are at their organization, they've got a seat at the table for some of this. How are we getting people prepared for this? So I think how are we getting them prepared? Because when you can't just put the tool in their hands and say, go use it and play with this and think that people are going to be effective and then magically become more efficient in their work. I think you have to actually train them thought process wise and a lot of other different ways because a lot of that work can be done that way. Some of the things that we've talked about for a long time being super important are going to be even more important. If work can be automated, so what then makes that person different than the next person? Well, it's their human skills.
Yeah.
It's those people-centered skills. So there's going to need to be a focus on those, I think, more in the future as time goes on as well. But then also, I think there's the actual work that we did. A lot of times L&D departments have been content creators for a long time. I mean, when we think about the technology that's been out there, LMSs, we're supposed to change the world. They didn't necessarily. LXPs didn't really change the world. Skills-based training hasn't really changed the world necessarily. All these things were supposed to change the world and change learning. Has it moved it forward? Sure. Has it changed the world? I don't know. I think AI is going to have an impact. Is it going to change learning forever? I don't know that I'm convinced that it's going to change learning
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Every other technology that we've had in the last 25 years is going to change learning forever.
Yeah.
I also think, you know what, if you can automate a lot of this and take away a lot of content creation from an L&D perspective, I love that because what people should be doing in L&D departments anyways is being out there with the people. The things
Absolutely.
that really move the needle in an organization is not creating 50 new trainings. It's going to those meetings. It's having the conversations with the leaders. It's coaching those leaders. It's helping understand and create team dynamic or helping when there's a challenge with team dynamic or even dynamics between different teams. It's helping people drive that strategy, figure out what their culture is, figure out what it is that's getting in their way. Those are the things that what we do well. But if you're spending all your time creating content, which I think a lot of people in L&D have been doing for a long, long time, or running programs, and that's it, you're missing part of the boat. So part of
Yeah.
the boat is out there being with the people. So if AI can take some of that away so that people can actually be out
Mm-hmm.
mentoring, coaching, guiding leaders and teams and executives, that's where I want L&D to be spending their time anyways.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you, my friend. Ryan, the next question I always ask, and you spoke to it plenty in the last couple minutes or when you started telling me about your path. You said so much, you shared so much, like you knew the question was coming, but I don't want to gloss over the question. So I want to see if there's anything else you want to add. But how does the work that you do today tie into who you were as a kid? Because you had said, you kind of dialed into leadership very early, whether it was studying your dad in martial arts as a teacher
Okay.
or whether it was a pastor or preacher. I forget what you had
Mm-hmm.
said specifically. You said you were dialed into that, but now considering this conversation where it's going, in going into discussing your book shortly, what is it that shows up from your childhood in today's work, in your work today?
Mm-hmm. I think it's just more personified. Like, I know that that's what I really love to do. People often ask me, like, what do you want to do next? What do you like to do? And the reality is I'm doing what I love to do, like learning leadership development, talent development, OD. That is what I love to do. I think I was put on this earth, John, to make managers and leaders better. I think to make them better, to make them more productive. I think for them to be more thoughtful and figure out how to balance things like empathy and human centric leadership and accountability, because I think people struggle with that. I think what a leader looks like is changing. And so for me, Like that's my mission. And, and we'll get into that with the book, why I wrote the book, but that's a driver of that, is now I know who I am. I think I knew pieces of that when I was younger, but as I
Yeah.
got older and older, it just solidified at this point, in my mid 40s, like I know who I am and I know why I'm on this world, and I'm on this world doing the work that I need to be doing to make organizations, people, leaders, teams better. That's why I'm here.
When you get to that point and you hit that sweet spot of really knowing who you are, but at the same time still being curious to make that better, it's incredible. Um, Ryan, aside from my standard questions that I always ask, just to kind of follow up on what you've been saying, I'm paying attention to what you're sharing, what you're um, saying about the role of leadership and managers in the last decade has been, I think we've all seen an insane shift in what leadership means, what
Same,
management
same.
means. For you, what have you seen over the last couple of years, even from like COVID to now, and then you got the AI to now? What kind of shifts are you seeing in the way that people see, operate in, navigate leadership? What kind of trends have you seen in your work?
Yeah, I've been talking about this since pre-pandemic, but definitely during the pandemic, I really kind of picked this up quite a bit.
Yeah,
And I think the reality is there's a couple big things that I think shifted and changed. Maybe they were there, but I think the pandemic and other things kind of brought this out of us even more. One was this move from, you know, command and control leadership to more human centric leadership. Like it was there. It was already starting to talk about it. We'd been talking about emotional intelligence. Brene Brown had started already putting out books, so did others. So it's not like it didn't exist. But what I think happened during the pandemic is everybody's mask fell. So like when I know even as a leader, when I was a leader, I had 5 people reporting into me during that time. And they they saw an even more human side of me. And I was already someone that kind of showed their human side a lot.
yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
think for a lot of leaders that maybe walked around with that mask, like it just disappeared. When everybody was just trying to survive and dealing what they needed to on a day-to-day basis, I think the way a lot of leaders showed up changed. Like Pandora's box was opened up, and you can't shove it back in. Like you can't do that. You
I'm
can't
just
you
trying
can't
to
put the
imagine shoving all that learning, that realization, that
yeah.
discovery, that again, that top just popped off.
Yep. So I think people, saw their leaders in different lights. I think people also started really thinking about life because of what was happening around them, sometimes losing family members, other things that were happening. They started going, oh, what do I really want and care about in life? And what's
Yeah.
important to me? And I think part of that was like being treated like a human being at work was part of it. So I think there was this shift that was already happening. Then everything happened during the pandemic. So there was now this expectation of like, you can be a good leader. You should be a good leader. You should be able to balance the accountability piece and being kind of a human centric leader. And I don't think that's went away. I think it's still around. I think it's still expected. I think the earlier upcoming generations expect that even more.
Yeah. Right. You had mentioned your dad, watching him in a leadership position. What role did your mom play to kind of, what did she contribute to your thought process, to who you are as a person? What's the other side of that parenthood relationship? What does that bring to you and what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my mom actually passed away when I was 6. So I think what that led was I had a dad who was working 2 jobs, going to school at some point of it. And so I was a latchkey kid back in the day. Like I'm talking about like I knew how to cook a full meal by the time I was 6.
Yeah.
So there was a certain level of responsibility and a certain level of just taking care of yourself and taking care of others that I had to pick up on a lot quicker than most kids do. So I probably grew up faster than most kids do because of the scenario and the situation around me. And I'm sure that has something to do with who I am, how I look at the world, why I think putting the extra effort and energy into things is really, really important, why I can really take care of myself. But it's also like I've had to open it up a little bit, make sure that others can take care of me because I was, was taking care of myself a lot when I was a kid. So I had to learn how to trust others and make sure that others, that it cared, which is kind of funny and weirdly dichotomous with some of the things that I've talked about. But it's true. Like there was some of those things
Yeah.
that I had to kind of open up about myself and learn. But those experiences definitely led me being who I am today. For sure. So while I didn't get a chance to know her as an adult or even as a young adult to say, like, have her guide me, like her death or so early in my life was a big, big part of it. And I would say part of that comes out too, and I talk about this a little bit in my keynote for the book, is like in a lot of ways, I feel like I shouldn't even be here today. Like I had open heart surgery. I was born with like 7 holes in my heart. I had I was on a heart monitor until I was 3. I had open heart surgery when I was 3, and I didn't even get a chance to play outside until I was like 4 or 5. My mom died at 29. She died when I was 6 of the same thing. So like every year that I've had past 29 has always felt like a gift. And it gets
Yeah.
back a little bit into that idea of like why and what is my purpose in this world? And again, it is to help managers and leaders and organizations be better. And every single year is a gift. And being a chance to write that book and write the book is a gift. Like all of this is a gift. Like that I've been around probably longer than I was ever meant to be. Um, Knowing that I had open heart surgery and was born with 7 holes in my heart when I was young. Like it's just,
It's wild.
yeah.
That's such a blessing.
Mhm.
From the loss of your mom, like the lesson that taught you, what that instilled in you, the open heart surgeries, that's incredible. Because when you say every day is a blessing, I can see it in your face. Because so many people tend to say that and they kind of say it and it's kind of become cliche at a certain point. But the way that you've shared it, the story you've shared along with it, that's beautiful, man. Um, Ryan, you've mentioned so many powers and skills and abilities that you have, but what do you consider your superpower? What is it that you do that
Mm.
no one can do better or take away from you?
It kind of gets back a little bit into that kind of science practitioner background. I think I'm a really good detective. So I'm really good at digging in. And because I've got some background in quantitative data, but I'm also just really good at having conversations with people and getting things out of them, quite honestly. For some reason, I'm one of those people that people just share things with, whether you want them to or
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
I think
We
I'm a really
don't
good
take
detective.
advantage of that. We love that superpower, but we don't take advantage of it. But it's incredible how much you can get out of somebody just by asking.
100%. Caring, asking and caring, genuinely caring.
Genuinely caring. We slip by each other like ships in the night. We say what we're supposed to say. We do what we're supposed to do, whether in work and business, this and that. For me, the most incredible thing about coaching has been just asking questions that people say, no one's ever asked me that before. And
Mhm.
for me, it seems like a very standard question, not because the person's a client, but just, to get to know this person in front of me. So there's such a great power in just being able to be somebody that people can share so much with.
Yep. And so I think that kind of nature makes me a really good detective. It's really getting at the heart of it. And I think that science piece of it also means I want to get at the heart of it. There's a lot of individuals in our field, so many that are very wonderful at what they do, so many that are really good at needs assessment and digging in. But there's also a lot of order takers, unfortunately, often because of the environment that they're in. And because of how they've been set up, or maybe how they've been trained again. So for me, I think I'm really good at getting to the heart of the problems. Like, what is it? What is the qualitative data telling us? What is the quantitative data really telling us? Which sometimes tells us a different story than the qualitative data. Like, what is the real problem we're trying to do? Which for an L&D guy to say this, but I'm going to say this, L&D is rarely the solution to a problem. It just rarely is. Like, it's part of it, but it's not, it's rarely going to be the thing that's going to totally 100% fix something. It's often, a manager maybe not showing up the way that they need to, or not setting expectations. It's often a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's often a structural thing, like how an organization's even structured. So, I mean, you have to look at this broader ecosystem of why this problem is rearing its ugly head and what is the right way to fix it. And part of that may be learning, or some portion of it may be learning or leadership development, but it's often just a piece of it. It's just part of the equation,
Yeah.
and there's a bigger equation to have there. And I feel like that's what I've been really good at in my career, is getting into organizations where, maybe they care, but they're just not sure how to get there.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to really like give them a vision and give them a strategy, but then turn around and work with the team, get them motivated and make it happen, like build that team so that they can do the things that they need to. I think sometimes people are blessed with one or the other. Like, they have either really great at strategy or really great at getting things done. And I think I've ended up finding out that I'm really good in kind of that player coach area of, yes, I'll create the vision and the strategy, but I also can jump in and make it happen too
Yeah.
and get the
Yeah.
team motivated to do the right work.
Ryan, for you, when it comes to leadership and development, what's great about this work is that you can work across so many fields. It's going to be
100%.
everywhere. I mean, there's no organization, there's no industry, field, niche, like nothing. It's everywhere. Is there a particular field that stands out to you that you enjoyed the most, or really which particular field that you've worked in kind of did you enjoy your time the most?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I'm pretty industry agnostic when it comes down to a lot of it because people are people,
Yeah, yeah,
and the industries are different and they all are structured a little different. They have different needs, they have different wants, they have different levels of comfort when it comes to doing things new and different. Like every organization is a little different. So I have to say that there isn't one that I think I've loved and probably loathed something about every single organization that I've worked in. Maybe the one that really did excite me the most, and I think it was a mix of the mission and the people, was probably this, that agricultural science kind of industry. I really
okay.
did enjoy that. It probably is one of the only industries that I maybe jumped back into. If given the opportunity, maybe retail would. I think there's something about retail too that's kind of interesting and fun. I do love fashion. I love some of those pieces, so that is something that I could see jumping back into. But I think of all the places where I really just enjoyed the culture and the people, I think in the work I was doing, the agriculture industry is probably one of those places.
Right. Obviously, we've been talking about leadership, leadership development. For you, though, what does leadership mean? What does great leadership look like? Again, this is a standard question I always ask.
Sure.
We've talked about it so much, but how do you define leadership? What are some words that you would put to it?
Responsibility, massive responsibility. I don't think we give it enough, credit for how much of a responsibility it is. Just to give you an idea, I know one of the things I talk about during my keynote is this study from the Workforce Institute. I think it was back in 2023, and they asked. The main focus of this study was people's. I think it was their kind of mental health, their mental health, and what did that really look like?
Yeah.
And when they did the study, managers had a bigger impact on someone's emotional mental health. The only person that was the same or even got close was someone's spouse or partner. So I'm talking their kids, their family, their coach, their mentor, their doctor, their psychologist, any of it
Yeah.
doesn't even get close to the
Yeah.
impact that your manager has. And I think we need to give management and leadership the due that it deserves because we often, again, in a lot of organizations, maybe put people into that role right away. We put them into that without any training. We do it because they're really great individual contributors
Mhm.
or great technically at what they do, but it's
Yeah.
very, very different thing. So like to me, a great leader is someone that can like set vision and set clear goals and give clear feedback, protects their team, is an advocate for their team, has the hard conversations because accountability is part of being a leader. You can't just be nice. You can't just be empathetic. You have to be able to balance that accountability as well. I think good leaders also know how to prioritize and pivot the work. That is one that I've seen so many organizations struggle with is they want everything done and then they just want everything prioritized. And I think in today's day and age, when we talk about some of the things that are changing with leadership, the other area that I didn't really get to, but we're flattening everything. We're flattening everything in all these. Look how many people that are just shedding people, tons and tons of people. Well, a lot of what they're shedding is that kind of middle management area. So you don't have it anymore. And when you don't have that area, you don't have people that are like there, kind of ground floor, having these conversations, doing the things that are needed, understand the work, understand the people working on it, might even understand the bots that are now working on it, because we know that's part of this as well too when it comes to AI. So how do you understand, prioritize, and pivot that work? And I think a really good manager and leader understands and knows that and can say, nope, we're not going to work on that. That doesn't give us any return on investment. That's actually costing us money versus, saving us money. This isn't really connected to what the business strategy is, and we don't really need to be doing this anymore. I think that's a lot of the important pieces too. So for me, it's responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And I wish people knew what they were getting into sometimes. Some of the programs and organizations I've worked at, we've put programs in to try to help people understand some of that so they understand why they're getting into leadership. Because if
Yeah.
they're getting in to do it for the paycheck, it's probably not the right thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, that was the first word in your response, responsibility. I think a lot of people lose sight of just how much of an impact they have in the ripple effect for that person. Um, it's yeah, just thinking through all the people I've talked with, all the relationships I've been with. So many of them are kind of driven by, yeah, status, moving up, you're doing the work, you're standing out, you're making the money, whatever it may be. But very few leaders really stood out in terms of turning back to the people that they were now in charge of and saying, okay, what do you need? Not we're going to put you to the ringer so I can keep delivering, but what do you need? What can we bring for you? What can we provide for you that will help you provide the most for the people around us as a facilitator? So I think that's one of the things that's very underrated and not considered. I think that's an amazing response. It's just that responsibility. Keep in mind how much of an impact you have on the people that you lead. So thank you for that. And now, Ryan, in jumping over to the book, tell me a little bit about the book. If you want, give the book's full title and how the book came to be.
Yeah, so it's my first foray into kind of the book world. It's called Quick Bites of Insight: Micro-Sized Learnings on Work and Leadership. And so this came out of a lot of the things we talked about. So we've talked about, like, I care about learning, leadership development. I want to help managers and leaders be better. But there's also this aspect of me that's part scientific, and there's a lot of pieces of me that are practical. So even when I think about how I look at initiatives, once I do that good needs assessment in an organization, I want them to usually be practical and realistic and easy to digest. And that's how I really think about learning and leadership development, really in a lot of what I do in organizations. And that bleeds over directly into the book. Like, the book is really 60 insights. It's about work and leadership. It's broken up into 4 different sections in the book, but it's written purposely, like, it's 300 to 500 words, John. 300 to 500 words. Probably takes you 2 to 3 minutes to read one of the insights. There's a lot of practical aspects to it. There's a lot of things you can take away and think about and do. There's a lot of reflection points in it, how I've written these so that people can do that. I want people to spend the time and get focused with it because they are so busy. We talked about how leadership is just blown up and we're flattening everything. And now everybody has a larger span of control and have more people that they have to lead. So what's the first thing that goes is development and growth. And the reality is that as leaders, we always need to be developing and growing, not only for ourselves, but again, getting back to what you said earlier, for the people that are working on our team. So I think that's an important one too. So for me, it was about, how do I write something that's practical and real and is almost like a handbook that you can pick up at any time, whether that's whether you're drinking coffee in the morning, whether you've got 15 minutes in between at work and you don't want to jump on the next thing to work because it just doesn't make sense, or whether you're getting ready to go to bed and you want to be able to flip through an insight or two before you go to bed. I wanted to really bring it to people and kind of have it in the flow of work and life was a really, really important thing to me. I love books and I love a 400-page book about a topic, but it wasn't for me. That isn't what I wanted to do. I wanted
Yeah.
to write something. I had so many thoughts about so many different topics. I wanted to take what we normally see in a book, which is, you read a 400 page book and you get 7 or 8 great, really insights out of it. Well, what if I just give people a bunch of insights
Yeah.
and you don't have to read 400 pages on the same topic?
Yeah. So for you, what was it that really prompted you to get going to write a book? I don't know if it's always been on the horizon for you on your to-do list, but was there a moment that you said, okay, now I want to start putting this together? What led to the book really, really coming off the shelf?
Yeah, I would say there was probably 2 big milestone moments. One was, people have been asking me to write a book for probably 5 or 6 years now. They're just like, Ryan, you've got a lot to say. You really should write a book. And I remember sitting at dinner with my friend Justine one day at her house. Her husband was there, my wife was there, and she was like, "When are you going to write a book?" And I'd heard it so much at that point, and she had written a lot of books. She's written 14 of them actually,
Wow.
and self-published 13 out of those 14. And she was like, "When are you going to write a book?" I'm like, there's so many books on leadership, career development. I'm like, I'd probably write a book in that area. And like, why does it matter? Like, there's so many books out there already. And she goes, because they're not in your voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember that made me pause. And she goes, "Look, you have a lot to say. I know a lot of people that do what we do, and you're very different. You have a different thought process when it comes to a lot of this because of who you are and because of your background and how you've been brought up." She goes, "People deserve to hear your voice." And I was like, okay. And so that started getting me thinking about it more. And quite honestly, I tell a lot of other people that same thing whenever they're like, I kind of want to write a book, but I don't know. And it's like, does it matter? It's like, I tell them pretty much that same advice. I think the other piece started in 2025. So in the beginning of 2025, I challenged myself to write these quick, I didn't have a name for it at the time, but these quick 300 to 500 word articles. I was going to put them out every Wednesday and just to kind of, build my followership, get my voice out there, get some of these things that were in my head out. And so I started doing that and I did that every Wednesday. And I didn't really figure out until probably halfway through the year. I think I was in the shower in May of last year of 2025. And I was like, holy crap, I'm writing a book. I was like, I got out of the shower. I don't even know if I threw on deodorant, John. I think I just put on some clothes and ran to my computer, pulled
Yeah.
everything off that I'd either written or had planned. Like I had already had 3 months out written for these different articles, pulled those all down. I already had 10,000 words to start with. I wrote
Okay.
the introduction for the book. I figured out I was going to call it Quick Bites of Insight. I rebranded everything on my LinkedIn page Quick Bites of Insight. And then I bought the domains for those websites, that all in one weekend, which
That
is very
eureka
me.
moment. That
Yeah, which
eureka
is very
moment when
me.
we're
Like
sitting there
once
in the
I'm in,
shower with the
I'm in.
shampoo,
Yep. Yep.
it's sometimes it's just always there. It just takes some random moment that you're not thinking about anything, and then that's when that moment of clarity hits.
Yep. And it did. And that was like, okay, I'm doing this. And then right from there, I was doing it. Like
Yeah.
I was going to write this book. So I started working on it on evenings, weekends, whenever I wasn't working and getting things done. I will tell you the other thing that was, I think, wonderful about the book was the community around me. Like I ended up talking to probably 20 of my friends that were authors and just, should I publish it? Should I self-publish it? Like what does that process look like? What's the benefits of those things? What should I learn? What do I need to know as I'm thinking through all of this? Writing the book was never really the challenge. It's like, how do you do all of the other stuff? Because I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, figuring out how to self-publish. So, I mean, talk to friends that were publishers that gave me really good, honest, candid advice. I had people around me. My wife is a graphic designer. So anything graphic design, if you've seen the book cover, it's very different than a lot of other book covers. And that's very me, but it's also very my wife. So my wife is a graphic designer and helped me out with that. Her boss was a graphic designer, helped me work on the website. I had another friend in my circle who did the illustrations for the book. So it was like this community of people coming together to help me put this thing out into the world that was so kind of important for me to help people, because it really gets back to helping people and helping people be better managers and leaders. And obviously I can do that in an organization. I can do that on LinkedIn, but having a book out there and being able to do that and do keynotes is another way to really help make a lot of better managers and leaders out there
Absolutely.
too.
So, Ryan, you had alluded to how you had broken up the book, generally how you had broken up the book, but what does that path look like? How did you structure the book? How did you decide to organize it in such a fashion or lay it out in such an order? Although, like you said, it's more like a guidebook, a handbook. You don't have to kind of read. It's not like Lord of the Rings where you have to read it in order. But how did you decide to structure it, to lay it out, to get your message out there?
Yeah, I think it came through as I was writing and figuring it out and actually getting it in front of people. So I originally didn't have it broken up into 4 different sections. It wasn't until I really had my first, I think, 20 readers. I had a group of 20 readers. I did 2 versions of individuals out there reading my book. The first 20 were those people that were close to me, knew me, I knew would give me really honest, candid feedback. The second group was more, as anyone that has a book knows, it's those people that are other authors, other individuals, people you want to kind of see it second or third, that are going to be
Yeah.
the ones that'll give you the quotes for the book. That's who you want to see it second. So I think out of that first round of feedback came, oh, you know what? You should really kind of chunk these into a couple different sections. And so I started thinking through that, even played with AI a little bit, stuck the book in there. How would you break this up? It did some good things, but I didn't 100% agree with the way that it was talking about it. So I ended up using parts of that, but had to do a little bit of my own context, as you do with AI. You can't just trust it
Yeah.
100% and say,
Yeah.
okay, let's start breaking it out this way. I mean, because the way the book really goes is there's an introduction about me and a little bit of what we've been talking about today. Probably more here than what's in my book. But then the first thing in the book right after the introduction is, how do you use this book? How do you use this book and how do you actually take it from just knowledge to action? So that is really where the book starts. That's the introduction piece. That's one of the first pieces that I really wrote right away. And then it breaks it down into, okay, here's 60 insights. Again, I've kind of taught you how to use this book. Part of it is you don't have to sit down and read the whole thing. It's your book. If you want to do that, great. But it's more of a handbook. It's more of something that you can go back to and reimagine. It's something that you've now got to some experience 2 years later and you want to go back and reread it again because it's going to preach something totally different to you at that time. And it's going to mean something totally different to you at that time as well. So, grab the pieces of the book that are helpful and relevant to you now is kind of what I've been encouraging people to do. And I think that's kind of the best way to really use the book. And so that's how it's structured. And then, it's got a conclusion, got an end. But I wanted to set the book up for this whole idea that you really want to think about how you're using this book. You want to think about this in a real practical, thoughtful way, kind of using it in the flow of work. You've got a hard conversation that you have later. We've got a chapter for that. Like, go in there and read that before you have that hard conversation. Think about it like while you're actually, how you can use this while you're working, which was a big part of it.
Yeah, and I like the fact that because of your work in all these different areas, you have a familiarity with data, with analytics, with science. Like, you're kind of like a bridge between all of that and the practical, the everyday. So no one's really missing out because you can provide all that information and put it in such a way that people can understand it. So I think that's a great resource to have.
Yeah, the early feedback's been really interesting around how people are using it. And they are really using it more like a handbook than just reading it all the way through, which is kind of what I intended.
Yeah. Right. So aside from maybe the website and the editing and the graphics and, taking a village kind of thing, what lessons have you taken away from writing this book? How have you evolved? How have you changed in the process of putting this together and getting it out there? Obviously, it's your wheelhouse, it's your industry experience, your life experience that goes into this. All those facets go into it. But how have you evolved because the book is out there? Like, what might have changed in your thinking in writing it?
Yeah, I think obviously there was a lot of learning was when it comes to self-publishing and marketing a book and what that really looks like. And quite honestly, I'm still learning a lot of that. I think there's more to learn when it comes to books every day. I know people that have multiple books out there that are still learning how do you do all of this. I think for me, it was exciting to put this out there, but it's also kind of scary because, when you put a book out there, it's not like a podcast or an article where like, people are probably going to forget about it and go away and it's just not there anymore. Like this, there's just something about it being a book out there, being your voice, having your face on it somewhere in there, having your name on it, that it's very vulnerable. And the idea of like being that vulnerable, and yes, I've been vulnerable before. I've been on podcasts. I've done a lot of other things. I've wrote some other things throughout my career. I was posting these things every Wednesday on my LinkedIn page. I'd posted a lot of other things in the last 10 years, but there's something different about slapping your name on a book. And like, are people going to like this? Are they going to care about it? Is it going to be important? Will anybody buy it? That you're just like, whoo. So I think it's, trusting yourself and betting on yourself a little bit. And I think that was a great way to kind of really trust and bet on myself. And you do that a little bit when you're internally working in organizations, but not in the same way. And so I think this is a whole different level of like trusting yourself, betting on yourself, and putting yourself out there for scrutiny in a way that you won't in other ways.
Yeah, kudos.
Because somebody can either go out there and say your book sucks and give you a 1 rating.
No, kudos to you. Because, yeah, somebody could look at it and be like, oh, so this is what they thought they should commit to a hard copy and put their name on it. But, you just have to trust yourself. I think you said it beautifully. So I know you're in the thick of promoting this and giving talks with the book. This isn't to rush you, but where do you see your writing going in the future?
Yeah. So no new book on the horizon yet. So I mean, definitely still kind of in early stages. This just came out in April. So still in that next step, kind of that search for my career. So I really want to kind of land in wherever my next step is first too. I would say the next thing that I really do see coming, especially once I get a little bit more settled, is an audio version of the book. So that's one thing I've heard pretty consistently from a lot of people is like, is it on Audible? And people really want it on Audible. And one of the things I talked to a lot of other authors about was based on if they were using a publisher or not. Sometimes they let them be the voice of it, and sometimes they hired someone else. And everyone that I've talked to that has hired someone else has hated it. like when it's not their voice saying the words in the way that they would say them, saying the phrases in the way that they would say them, they just despise it. And so I think at some point I want to do an audio version, but I also want to make sure that I'm the one and it's my voice. and that it's not someone else's voice in that book. Because I think if I, much like probably a lot of my friends and fellow authors, if I go back and listen to an audible version and it's not me, I'm probably going to be upset by the way that they
Yeah.
do it and said it.
I mean,
So, I mean,
you have such a familiarity with the work.
mhm.
Obviously, it is your work, it is your experience. You have a command, you know it well, so you speak about it differently. So I think, yeah, it'd be a disservice if you yourself didn't read it, just because I think when the author reads it, all of that comes through. It provides a little more, not to take anything away from any voice actors or narrators, anything like
They're
that. But
great. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um,
Uh, I do
Brian, so,
think there could be a two or three in me. I've already got the covers for them figured out, which is the only thing I had figured out is what the covers would look like for a two and three. And I still write and share a lot of insights on LinkedIn, so that hasn't stopped. So I always tell people like, one, pick up my book. If you want to see some of my continued thoughts, insights, some of the work that I'm doing, still connect with me on LinkedIn because I still do quite a bit of that out there too.
can you share what the titles would be at this point? What you think the titles would be?
Oh, I think they would still be quick bites of insight. It's more of what the visuals would be. And I don't want to give those
Okay.
away. Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you saw the visual for the book, it's got the bag of chips on it with the
Yeah.
light
Yeah. Yeah.
bulbs.
Yeah.
I know exactly what two and three would look like.
Okay. Ryan, what lessons do you hope people take from the book? Obviously, we've talked about the book, your background, why you're doing this, why you've written the book, what's important to you. But in what words would you try to, share with somebody that this is a book? What do you think they could take away? What words would you put to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it really gets back to a little bit of what we talked about earlier. Leaders have a massive impact on people's lives, just a massive impact. Being a leader is a massive responsibility. And the reality is, I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't think anyone expects their leader to be perfect because we're all human beings. But you have to be getting better as a leader constantly. You have to be growing. And it's not just for you. Like, part of it's for you. Part of it's so that you can be more successful at what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's really about the people that are under your care. It's those people that are under your care. Like, you not only need to get better for yourself, you need to get better for them. You also need to be able to show and be a good representative of what it means to continue to learn and grow and develop. Because if you're not doing that, why is your team going to think that's important? And why are they going to care
Yeah.
about that? So, I mean, I wrote a book that I think makes it easy for you to do that. Some people aren't going to take, a 2-day crucial conversations class. I love crucial conversations. If you've got 2 days to take it, do it. But if you're not going to, or your organization doesn't invest in development in that way, you've got to think about how do you invest in it yourself. And I know that we all are busy. We've got a lot going on at work. We have a lot going on in our lives. So many people are in this sandwich generation where they've got kids and they're taking care of their parents. So it's like time is not only money, but I think it's just precious. And
Yeah.
so I want to make the best use of time if someone's going to really think about their development and growth. And that's really what I was doing, like right training, right person, right time. And that's what this book was about. Like, how do you get it in front of people so that they can use it when they need it, when they want, when they have that need so that they can grab it, pull it up, look at it, and hopefully get a little reflective.
Right. Obviously, we're here talking about your book, but what book has inspired you or made an impact on you? One that when you come back to talk again on this series, aside from future books you're going to write, what book would you bring to the table saying this is the one that's really stood out and made a difference in my life and career?
The book that for me was really, really important in my career was What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. It's an oldie, but a goodie. I
Yeah.
think it's like 25 years old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it is such a good book. It's such a good book. I mean, the first half of it really spends time like helping you think about what it means. A lot of what we talked about to go to that next level in your life, especially that individual contributor to like maybe, a supervisor or a manager. But it's also very beneficial for anyone, no matter where you are and kind of what that next level. So maybe you're a manager going to director, or a director going to VP, or a VP going to a C-suite role. I think that book is so impactful. And I've put it in front of VPs. I've put it in front of people that are thinking about being a leader and everyone in between. And I still think it holds up just as much as the day that he wrote that book. And I think if you are really get into that book and you read it and you're reflective, especially the first half of that book where it kind of talks about these different kind of characteristics that you need and how they show up differently at different points in your life or different points in where you are in an organization. Like if you really get reflective and think about it, you're going to go, holy shit, I've got some work to do. It's like, I think I've always, every time I've looked at it, went, oh my God, I've got some work to do. And I think anyone that's really thoughtful and it doesn't just reading it for the words is going to go, oh wow, I've got a lot of work to do, or I've got a
Yeah.
lot of work to do so I can get to that next level. Or now I'm at that level and ooh, I need to change the way that I'm really thinking about that. So to me, I think that is such a good book. And it's similar in a lot of ways to my book in the sense that I think you can reread it and you're going to get something different out of it every time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, depending on where you are in your career, depending on where you are in your life, depending on what's going on with you in your
Yeah.
life, you're going to get something different out of that book. And I think it's not too dissimilar in ways. Like, again, I think same thing for my book. You're going to get something different out of it now compared to 3 years from now, compared to 5 years from now, you're going to get something different. So
Yeah.
I love Goldsmith. But that book specifically, I love it. The second half of it is about feedback, how to get it, how to give it. And I just think the second half of that book is almost just as powerful as the first half of the book, too.
Yeah. It's funny when I've had people in this series that wanted to cover a book that I've read. Sometimes I'll say to them, "Yeah, I'll go back and reread it for the conversation." And I always, for years, I've always put like notes and little markings in the margins, markings that only I would know kind of what they mean, like a great quote, or this is a 5 out of 10 kind of comment, or this is a 10 out of 10, like what really stands out, or starring it, whatever it may be. And there was a particular book I read where I hadn't read it in maybe a decade, and I went back and everything that was in the margins, the parts that stood out, were not those parts. Now they were different sections, different quotes. So I love that you share that. Anytime you go back and reread something, even a year in between, I think
Yeah.
life and time has gone by so quickly, or it seemingly has gone by so quickly since COVID, that the last couple years, the last 6 years, it's just like everything is moving so quickly. So thank you for bringing that up. And before wrapping up, right, I wanted to go back because you put this in your bio. So now I want to know in general where it comes from. But you talk about outside of work, he is passionate about music, movies, fashion, pop culture, art, and always up for a lively conversation on any of them. So where does that come from? What does that look like?
I've always enjoyed music and movies and art. Like, I've always dated artists. My wife's an artist. I think every woman I dated was an artist or an actress in some way, shape, or form. It was funny because my dad, similar to you were talking about your parents, kind of like pushing you out of the industry and more into like the thought world
Yeah.
and business. My dad did the same. I think when I was younger, I think I don't think he knew that I had an artistic side to me, whether it came fashion, which I could probably, or an interior design. Like I've got an eye for things that I wouldn't have known when I was younger because my dad didn't really push me that way. He pushed me towards the smarts because he knew I was smart. Look, go do that. Go do the business stuff. Go do this. Go do that
Yeah.
world. And so those things are always things that I love. Like I'm just a music guy. Like I'm a pop culture guy. Like I literally like spent my weekend. I was so excited to go see Masters of the Universe this weekend because I grew up with that. And Skeletor is
Yeah.
probably my favorite character slash villain of all time. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to see if they could redeem themselves from the really horrible 80s movie that they had on Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
Nothing against Dolph Lundgren, good guy. Lots of good movies. That wasn't one of them. So I wanted to see if they could really like redeem themselves in that. But that's been a big part of it. Like I love just pop culture and art and music and movies. And I spend a lot of time going to concerts and doing a lot of that. Just say I've got a lot of art in the background. My wife's an artist, so we spend a lot of time at art shows, buying art. We've got a basement full of art that we actually store in a very particular way so that we can pull it out and change them out all over throughout our house all the time.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
just something that we love, like, and I love. She's got the
What
same passions I do there.
what's the verdict on the new He-Man movie?
I would give it, it's cheesy. It's it's campy. It's just like the cartoon. Like I went back and watched the cartoon as when I was older, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is pretty
This shit is
cheesy.
horrible.
This is cheesy." So
When they
it's
started talking about that new movie, I'm like, yes, like I think we saw a preview somewhere. My kids were like, what? I'm like, I used to watch this. It was when I was a kid. It was awesome. Whether it was that or something else, I went back and I looked it up on TV, found it somewhere. And as they were watching it, they kind of looked at me like, really?
oh yeah.
Compared to everything they watch today, I mean, it just doesn't compare at all. But I mean,
No.
the power of nostalgia, so that's all there.
Yeah. It means some of those things held up, some didn't. Like Thundercats, still good. Like if you go back and watch the original Thundercats,
Yeah, that was the other
that's
one.
good. That's
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
He-Man, no. They clearly were just have TV show to sell toys.
Yeah. So Ryan, in wrapping up, thank you for everything you shared today. Is there anything else that you want to share? Anything that I might not have asked? Anything I missed? Anything you want to bring up? Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I mentioned, I'm out on the hunt, kind of looking for my next role. So, very excited about that, interviewing with a lot of different companies. I launched Lucha Leadership Consulting. So, that's for my freelance work on the side. So, if people are interested and want to do something like that, great. If you're interested in my book, I would say check out quickbitesofinsight.com. So, it's got a website. Go out there, check it out. If you are interested in bulk orders, maybe you've got like a town hall coming off or an offsite or some sort of team activity that you want, you know what? I can do bulk work orders and I can probably do it better than Amazon can do it. I also have keynotes and other trainings. So if you want something in your organization, reach out to me, talk to me. I'm here. I can have those conversations with people. And last but not least, I would say I do a lot on LinkedIn. So, I mean, if people are interested in wanting to connect with me, go out to LinkedIn, check it out, follow me. Check out Quick Bites of Insight. That'll tell you even a little bit more about me. I think all my podcasts I've ever been on are all pretty much on LinkedIn or on LinkedIn and on Quick Bites of Insight. So people can check out some of the other conversations and some of the other topics that I've had and talked about throughout the years too.
And again, Ryan shared his book, Quick Bites of Insight, Micro-Sized Learning on Work and Leadership. Ryan, thank you so much for being here and for sitting down for this conversation.
Thank you, John. It was wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. And if there's anything I might have missed, please let me know. Reach out to me. I'll reach out to Ryan, see what kind of additional guidance, insight, wisdom, all of it I can get back. In the meantime, thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.